Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chad Porto, and joining me is my quarantined buddy, Marcus Green. Marcus, it is the Corona season. Get out your hula skirts and your grass skirts and your coconut bras and be ready to melt those down for kindling because it's going to be a while, folks. Our stay-at-home order
Oh
has
yeah.
been extended to May.
Hey.
Hey, so that was kind of expected. I'm fine with it. I know that's not going to be everyone's takeaway, mostly because I can still work. Not everyone can, so different situations and such. But got to flatten the curve, man. I'm helping to do for Corona what I did for my class's GPA.
Hilarious.
Marcus Green, how are you?
Good. Yeah, man. It's the ultimate April Fools is on us. Of course, like you said, we saw this coming. For anybody that didn't, I don't see how. I mean, the death toll is going up. I mean, the scary part is like the numbers that we're getting, that we're being told every day as official numbers, is probably ballpark,
Mm-hmm.
and that's crazy because it's in the thousands across the globe. But yeah, I guess the good news is you're seeing all these levels of creativity from people continuing their work from home or coming up with these great things for fans and even creating some revenue off it. Like seeing all these artists have like these battles on Instagram Live, and then practically turning into like an internet concert. You know, Uh, so it's some good stuff. Yeah, you got DJs having whole parties and stuff and just going through their greatest hits, and yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. We still got some Floridians. I think I see they finally got the orders to stay their ass at home, but that's more so of a challenge than a mandate for them. So
I pity Florida. Not just because it's literally the handle of the toilet bowl region, but also because their governor's incompetent. He just said
yeah,
today, we just found out yesterday, that the coronavirus can be spread even if you're not showing symptoms. And I'm just like, we knew that in February. What? It took you 2 whole months to know what was on Google? So either he's lying or he's truly incompetent. Either way, if I'm a Floridian, I'm bending over and kissing my ass goodbye because that state is such a problem. At least you got like part of Georgia and Mississippi blocking you from Florida's stupid. So I'm thankful for that. But with that being said, we have the boys to talk about. Marcus, we had 2 arcs this week. Proper preparation and planning, which is so ironic in today's situation, as well as Barbary Coast. Now, proper preparation and planning in Barbary Coast were essentially, what's the word I'm looking for? Not flashbacks, but story filler. We knew what a lot of this was already going to be because we watched the show, but in proper preparation and planning, we found out what Butcher's Vendetta against Vaught America is. Although, if I remember specifically, I don't think they went into great details with the whole wife situation. So there's still more there, but we also found out more about the lamplighter situation with him and Mallory. So there was that. It was also very telling because we got to see that there's fragmentations within the boys, especially with Butcher and MM, and then of course with Frenchie and the female. They were seeing essentially, what the hell is his name?
Homelander.
Thank you, Homelander. We were seeing Homelander essentially going crazy, yelling at himself in the mirror like he's me. I mean, I don't do that.
Yeah, that was so. I really dug that because it very much reminded me of the Norman Osborn Green Goblin dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
specifically from one of my favorites, the '90s cartoon.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was really good because we see so much of the arrogance. Pretty much, we really get to see before this scene kind of on display the guy that's in the mirror. on display all the time. To kind of see that conversation and kind of be like this guy that's very much on the outside but feels like he's being held captive by the man in the mirror. I thought that was a really well executed dynamic. He was like that whole thing about that whole exchange about, why would a god or a self demigod, be sitting up here having regrets about something, and then going through all the stuff, and then let's not even get on the whole butcher's wife situation. And then of course, that whole thing. We still, like you said, we get bits and pieces of what happened. I still think it's far more titillating in the live action thing, just because of how. Can't wait to get back to that. But yeah, it's interesting because there's far more gruesome here. Like the whole line of "I'm not the one who effed a baby in half" or something. Like I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to finish this story.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in this. In proper preparation and planning, also, we got to see one of the more twisted scenes, and it was done very low key. I mean, the initialness was not, but the true disturbing aspects of it, I thought, was I forget her name, but she's some type of Vought handler who's now getting a bigger role in the story. She's essentially like an assistant and associate kind of situation, and she's there with a plane mechanic. There's a flight teacher. There's another Vought guy and Homelander, and they're watching Black Noir try to learn to fly in his Black Noir jet. And Homelander goes, he doesn't know how to fly his own jet yet. And I just thought that was kind of the perfect kind of point of emphasis on how dumb this could be at times. But he ends up flipping out for some reason, turns on his guns, mows down a couple people, and then blows up the jet. And the Vought assistant lady is covered in this pilot's guts, and then she's trying to talk to the head of the Vought Associates. I forget his name, and she eventually then starts to do a lot of deep diving into mathematical calculations about if the boys in the Seven were to go head to head, what would happen. And she's running these numbers. And you would think after being covered in the guts of somebody else that you wouldn't be that kind of stoic about it. But she's very adamant about trying to find out what the results of this is. And they deduced, the numbers aren't really put in context at the moment, but it's something to do with the fact like 82% of the time, the only survivors would be Black Noir, Homelander, and possibly Queen Maeve. And that's kind of very telling because the whole aspect is like we need to keep looking at this on a broader scale and looking at how the survivors of these situations handle themselves after the fact. And it's all very telling, and it's all very analytical, and considering what she just witnessed, it's also very, very rough on the sensibilities, because if a friend of mine or someone I don't even know like falls in the street and they're okay, I'm gonna be thinking about them all day, Just some random dude falls. I'll be like, oh my God, you okay? Dude got ripped in half in front of her with 40 cal bullets and she's fine. And it's just like, wow, this is some fuckery.
Yeah, it speaks to her level. I mean, and obviously we might not get to delve off too much into her personal affairs because that'll tell you a lot about a person, when they're not at the desk. But to me to go through that, go in the bathroom, get it together, have the blood on your pocketbook, and then basically have to do a self-check-in so you can get your mind back into it, and then immediately follow something traumatic like that with a promotion at the level she got it. And then it almost felt like it was easy for her to forget about what just had happened because she's more intrigued by this whole Seven versus the boys thing. Primarily, like, how is this even a thing? Like, they could literally, like, Homelander could wipe these guys out in one heat vision, but for some reason, these guys are at odds. This is one of the most one-sided fights on paper in the history of man, but for some reason, this is a thing. So for her to go through that program and all that, I think that just speaks to her level of fascination with that whole thing, which it is fascinating because you really are sitting back thinking like how deep does this go that this is actually freaking Raw versus SmackDown?
Not since the Monstars versus the Looney Tunes and Brock Lesnar versus Zach Allen has a matchup been so one-sided. Or should we say one-legged? I'm sorry. So that was kind of the crux of this one. Plus, we also got to know the story of Mallory, who in the show was a woman. In this one, he's a man. We don't get to see what actually happens. And considering one of the things that happens in proper preparation and planning, or I think, the fuck it happened in proper preparation. Considering what we saw in this arc, I'm a little surprised we didn't see the Lamplighter situation at least play out some during the course of the book. But we find out that Lamplighter basically is pissed off that they have to kowtow to a bunch of normies, and he ends up going all, psycho killer on them and kills Mallory's two granddaughters. I think I don't remember if they gendered them. Just two grandkids, two grandbabies. And the seven respond by capturing Lamplighter and killing a bunch of people to do so, and handing Lamplighter over to the boys so Mallory can put a bolt in his head and throw him out of the plane. And at one point, I even kind of chuckled. Butcher kind of goes, "Is he giving a speech?" Because you don't see any texts above their heads, but you can see that Mallory in one frame has like an open mouth, almost as if to say he was talking or ranting at Lamplighter as he's in custody. And Butcher just sees it and goes, "Is he giving a speech?" And I thought that was pretty damn funny. But it kind of showcases that this group was kind of twisted in the beginning, and the situation kind of expands beyond that when after Lamplighter's dead, Butcher essentially gets mad at Mallory because Mallory rolled over and gave up the boys to the CIA, basically saying, "I'm done." And Butcher's like, "What the hell? This is our group. What are you doing?" And he threatens to kill Mallory because of it.
Yeah, that whole exchange was really cool because it was a level of narcissism from both of them from different perspectives. Obviously, again, we keep getting allusions to, and I think one of the more pivotal moments that happened even before all this went down was going back to that mirror conversation Homelander was having with himself. Frenchie and
The female
was watching that, and it was like, "Yo, well, this is wild. We need to go tell the boss." And they went to go do it, and he completely like brushed them off, and like this is coming off of them basically like, maybe it's time for us to ditch this whole thing. So it kind of, Butcher's, like in the show, his very one track minded goal is very much pushing the people that he needs most right now away in ways that he can't see because, again, he kind of got the blinders on. So that was interesting. And again, going back to the conversation with Mallory, like him saying, like, what this a-hole did to me, why, I'm going to these lengths, and you still, didn't set up a scenario for me to ever get this asshat one-on-one. So you'll forgive me if I just see, in a way, he basically told him like your grandkids was kind of collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
That just happened, and then that great exchange of like that first punch I let you get. If I swing back, you ain't getting up. And so I thought that was a real powerful exchange because it was like, in a lot of ways, he kept telling the guy to F off, but in also a lot of ways, he was reaching out to him, kind of telling him, "You were my last hope to do this on a straight up and down way. Now that you can piss off, I'm gonna have to go do things a little bit completely different." And the fact that who was the guy that got promoted and basically came and tried to rub it in Butcher's face?
Yeah, I was just about to get to him because in the show he was like an informant for the boys. Because remember the scene where they were at the race and they Butcher called someone, and this dude was watching a bunch of Paralympic athletes going at it, and he's getting aroused because of it. That's supposed to be who this character is. He's basically a penny pinching paper pusher kind of guy. Apparently, I forget the name of the woman who funds the boys through the CIA. She's kind of letting them go carte blanche, and not really worrying about things like paperwork and process and procedures. This dude's
Rainer.
Rainer, yeah, I think that's her name. This dude's anal retentive, so to get him out of the way, he basically stalks him to a charity event where I think she's like a javelin thrower, a Paralympic javelin thrower.
That's handicap.
Yes, that's what Paralympic is.
Oh,
She's in a wheelchair, but she's yoked. And she's going back to her hotel after the festivities is over, and the dude kind of, the creepy paper pusher dude, stalks her essentially, runs into her, throws her into his room. She beats the shit out of him, and then Butcher shows up, ties him to the bed as he's unconscious, and then sicks his dog. What's the dog's name? Devil? No, that's not right. Terror. He sicks Terror on him after stripping the dude naked, tying him to the bed, and he tells her the two words no one wants to hear when they're ass up in a bed, tied against their will. Fuck it. And that's what Terror does. So Butcher's kind of...
he was like, when she said she detained you, I thought she just kind of tied it out. I didn't know she had something by ankles by your knickers and stuck a dildo, because this ass had apparently his dick is dead.
Yeah, so he got kicked in the dick too many times, apparently. and now his jangles don't work.
So like, he's the villain that Dr. Evil's his entire plan before he tries to execute it.
Basically.
So she basically hit him with the two Gohan punches on sale. It drops him, and then it just leaves him there. And freaking Butcher, the way it comes off, you think he's about to do something far worse than what he's already got, because he's laying there with apparently the sex toy up his ass. And the way they play it in the comic, you hear Butcher, but we never see him.
You're right.
So you think it's about to be something worse, because at this point Butcher's out of options, or so it's come off like that. So you thinking, oh God, what is it? He finna prolong this torture, and then of course the exclamation point being Terror is enough. But just that whole freaking exchange, because the whole thing about them, hey, we see a lot of money's been taken out of these accounts. I'm gonna need you to he basically asked him for all his tax forms, back taxes, basically.
They were being audited.
Exactly. So that was like the ultimate revenge, and then to follow it up with that last conversation with Rainer, and then to see her basically really play right into his hands was kind of brilliant. This guy he's on a different level, man.
He's definitely the one of the villains of the story. So the best parts about this, and I really enjoyed the Rainer Butcher end sequence of this series. Butcher comes in and she pulls a gun on him, and he sits down nonchalantly and starts talking to her. And he's telling her all about, hey, we found this thing in Russia where you can target a soup's blood DNA, put some of those into some missiles on some F-16s and blow them out of the sky. Hey, it's all good. It's all good in the hood. And she's like, you threatened to kill my children. And he's like, I was never going to do that. Besides, between the two of us, I'm not the one that kills kids. And Mallory and Rainer just kind of sits down. And she's like, you dick. And apparently, something to do with Afghanistan and bombings, and it's Garth Ennis's attempt to be atopical on a political, maybe not atopical, but political on a divisive statement or divisive time period during 2006, 2007. He's trying to bring light to it and all that, and I'm not always a big fan of my politics in my comics, so I was kind of droning out during that. But eventually, he's like, "All right, time for us to go," and she kind of goes, "Do you have to go?" And he goes, or something like, oh, you have to go now? And he's like, yeah, we got things to do and all that. And she's like, well, do you have to go? And Butcher's like, nah, we can stay a little bit longer. And then he pulls out I think it was like a tape recording device.
Yeah, it was a recording device.
Even in 2006, we had digital recorders. What are you doing? Butcher, you have infinite funds from the CIA, and you're clearly hoarding a lot of the money. You can afford a digital tape recorder.
This guy threatens your kids, basically calls you every time you interact. Every time you interact with a guy, he basically calls you 5 different versions of a cunt sickle. Um, you threaten to kill him. Y'all have this weird rapport. Probably the last guy you should be dealing with in your position. And yet somehow after all this, he gets you in an emotional state. And again, this is again got I guess threatened to kill your kids. Yet above all this, you place the dick as a priority.
Right. And the funniest part is she's leaving her position as the CIA liaison, and she was going to hand it over to the sniveling no dick guy. But Butcher obviously set in motion a plan to blackmail him out of the position, or at least blackmail him in order to keep him under thumb so that Butcher can do whatever the hell he wants. So this was kind of like Butcher's last hurrah with her. And he even says, like, from now on, we'll handle this by emails and calls. And she's like, wait, why? And he goes, like, it's one thing to go to Langley, because the guy, Langley, Virginia with the CIA, it's very protected. Very hard to really get any eyes on that. But he goes, it's a different story on Capitol Hill, because Rayner's going to be running for state senator in Massachusetts in a month's time in the book. So all of these kind of converging events really made it so that he could manipulate the situation even more than he normally does. And it really shows you just how gross Butcher is.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Carl Urban play that, though. Like, that's going to be...
Yeah. God, I can't wait to see. It's even better during this time because pretty much we almost feel like we're still going to be, inside by the time the second season comes out. And it's going to be like the
second season's coming.
I want to say it's like April, Mayish, maybe Mayish. But yeah, it's real interesting because like we had like 2 peak moments of ultimate self-reflection in this issue. One by Home in the Mirror, and then that whole thing about like she really got in her feelings in that last exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Almost to the point she was like, he's getting ready to leave. She was like, "You once said we deserved each other," and he drops the line, "Nobody deserves me, mate." Like nobody does. Like he's fully aware of this thing he's become because it's almost not even human at times.
Mm-hmm.
But because of what happened to him, much like in the show, brilliantly played by Carl Urban, and this is a lot of where the similarities lie with the characters. He, there's nothing else left for him to lose. So, to even bridge off that, in the live action with the fact that basically everything we've seen from him in season 1 has been a lie because obviously we know how that ended.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be brilliant to play, but in this, it's like, there is no Lazarus pits in the store. When you see somebody die here, it's over. Like so, it's crazy. Like he fully knows he's going down lanes that you don't get to come back from. He's just fully committed, even if it pushes away what is perceived to be his best friend in MM, because they had a real powerful exchange in the book too. I think one that helped Frenchie kind of frame it like, okay, I think it's time for us to start making the exit plan because this whole operation is falling in the shitter. Huey's taking a sabbatical. These 2 who hold down the fort, they're branching off, and we're basically just information getters and basically a weapon. Like, if that falls apart, we're just gonna be left out in the fodder. So it's a unique thing, but again, he's kind of like the Dominic Toretto thing. Like his gravity pulls everyone in or pushes them out. So it's on him though.
That's a good reference. But there was an original Dom before the new Dom. New Dom is taller, bigger, a little bit darker. We call him Dwayne. Old Dom's a little bit smaller, a little bit wider, a little bit more annoying. We call him And in the original Dom in this story is Gregory Mallory, who himself is someone who basically saw the perils of superdom and vowed to fight against it. After Starlight and Huey left Scotland or Ireland.
I think it's Scotland.
After they left Scotland. After they left Irish Scott, which is both. They flew to San Francisco, and Huey is basically on a mission to find Greg Mallory, to find out more about the history of the boys, him, Butcher, because he has so many more questions now. Because when Butcher, revealed the video to Huey, Butcher, it hasn't really been kind of textualized, but you can kind of surmise that the point of that was to galvanize Huey with the boys against Starlight. But it ended up having an opposite effect. And now Huey, who was already questioning everything they were doing beforehand, is now on the verge of leaving behind the boys. And Mallory's kind of that last-ditch effort to try to decide one way or another. He wants information. Starlight goes with him, and we're going to kind of chop this up into two little segments. Well, the stuff with Starlight was fantastic. She's the best written character in this whole book. Huey's up there, but it's hard to argue that Starlight isn't, just a great humanizing character who owns her flaws, owns her mistakes, and tries to live in a situation where she's trying to be as earnest as she possibly can while trying to be as honest as she possibly can, also while owning all the things done to her and done of her own volition. Huey's, mirror against her is a fantastic storyline arc. And when they have that conversation overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge about how she views the relationship and, how broken she is, and she gets to a point where she just says, if you could pretend to just be nice to me for a little bit longer, I would really appreciate that. And it's just like this broken girl who is just looking for something to hold on to. And thankfully, Huey's a person who, in the context of the book, is going to be someone, at least near the end, that can be that person for her. But at the right time, at this current point in time, they're not on the greatest of ground. So it was a really powerful part of the book, and it's where Enos really stands out as a writer, is the interpersonal conflicts that he writes. When he's stripping away all the gore and all the gunk and needless shots at industries, and he just sticks to a story, he's fantastic. But it's when he adds everything else on, and we're going to get to that here in a second, that I think he just goes off the rails.
Needless orgies and entertaining but superfluous dog effing humans, and just maybe over gore deaths, which I appreciate about us, because we almost have in a lot of ways had to fight against the sanitizing of the whole rated R concept when it comes to movies and shows, or the PG-17 line that you have to walk or whatever. But it's those moments where books like this shine. It's funny. Yet again, another conversation between two characters that's on a bridge or something like that. Like the conversation between and Huey, brilliant. This conversation and some other conversations. But yeah, she really is just incredible. And I think what's so fascinating about this thing is you seeing them at odds, because the two things that she thought she'd go to the boys and find herself, total opposite. Huey thought he was finding himself. She thought she'd find herself in the 7. He thought he found himself in the boys.
I knew you'd get it. I knew you'd get it. I was like, he's gonna get it.
Yeah, and it's how I am. It's always another layer. And then even with all the conflicts that they was running into with those two factions, from a moral standpoint, they found the strength to stay and find whatever goodness they could in it, because they used each other. They was each other's escapes. But now you got them basically being at odds with each other because of their positions in said factions, and they're finding that they're being pushed out of those things because of each other. So it's just this weird thing now, where it's like, now they got to pick sides. Either they choose each other, or they choose those two things, and it's this weird conflict of being at odds with both of them. So it's weird, but again, this one of those things where, like, if it's real love, it'll mold itself. But you got two individuals who are trying to very much find out who they are separately together. It's a weird thing. So
the climax of that story ends at the end of the arc of Barbary Coast, where Huey tells her full on, I'm in the CIA, I kill Soups, we're going to try to kill the Seven, but it's going to be nasty, it's going to be bloody, and all I need you to do is just run. And she's like, no, I'm not going to leave you, I'm going to help you. And he's like, this isn't a time to be a hero, put your cape away. And I don't remember the exact line, I'm going to try to do it the best I can, but it was so brilliant. He goes, find a bed, hide underneath it, and pray that when you come out, there's still a world to see, or something to that effect. I'm like, oh, that's great. And it's kind of left in that kind of limbo as the issue ends, because it jumps right back to Mallory. But that was a fantastic way to end that arc's revolving take on Huey and Starlight. But the parts of the book, at least in the arc, that I really felt kind of... I don't like using this word often, but I genuinely felt insulted during this arc. So Mallory and Huey are talking about the boys, and Mallory kind of goes, after I got out of the service and all that, I wanted to find the most brutal people possible, evil, blah, 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 and then that's how I got the Butcher. So they're really painting Butcher to be a psychopath. Like it's clear when Mallory finds him that he's already off the rails. But before they get to that point, Mallory tells Huey about the times he spent in the United States Army back in World War II, because apparently Mallory's actually 91. And he's been on Compound V, or has taken so much Compound V that it's extended his life a little bit, more years than he anticipated, and he's kept his youth longer than he expected, or at least some of his youth. Like, he looks like he's probably in his 60s. But he's like, but you still feel old. And he's recounting to Huey about his time in the service, and they introduced a kind of version of the JSA / Howling Commandos. And you can see right off the bat, like, one of them is supposed to be Captain America. He's got the Judge Dredd shield, he's got the Judge Dredd eagle, but he's got the Captain America mask, and like, he's all Captain America. You got a combination of Hawkeye or Green Arrow, Hawkeye, and Hawkman. You got some dude who's a bug. He's weird looking. We got this little lad dude. We got this Crimson chick. We got a dude who's the Knight is Marcus. I know who your favorite is. It's the Knight. I know you. And then we had this green welder dude, and they're like the heroes of the 40s. And basically, they show up. We're going to help you defeat the Nazis. And then the Nazis ambush them and kill them off, basically, one at a time. And they basically mow down the irrelevant names, like the chick, the Knight, and all them first. Then the Eagle takes a flight into the air and immediately runs into the propeller of a Nazi plane, killing him. And I'm just like, I'm watching this, and it's like, this is clearly Garth Ennis saying, I hate superheroes. Anyone who likes superheroes are lame. They're stupid. You're dumb for liking superheroes, and this is what I do to superheroes when I get the opportunity to do it. And I just felt so needlessly insulted by that, because I know you don't like superheroes, Garth Ennis. I know. But you don't need to insult the people who do. And I feel like during this arc especially, that's exactly what he's trying to do.
Yeah, these mock-up imitations. Sometimes it's endearing in a weird way. We know the line about imitation, but some other ways it's just outright mocking. Like it's because I was watching a review of Soul Plane, like a bad review of Soul Plane.
Is there a good review of Soul Plane?
No, but it's about the same guys that did that review of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's funny because they was on Soul Plane, and then when you said that about the Eagle, it made me think about when Kevin Hart's dog got sucked into the into the freaking thing of the plane. And of course, you would look at that as like the symbol of America taking down the Nazis, I guess, in a way, because it was an eagle. But yeah, that that's again, Enid strikes again. Like, for every 2 steps forward is 4 steps back. It's a unique skill he's had in his book, but again, it's definitely interesting. Even going back to, like you said, the whole exchange between Huey and Starlight, and that's another one of those instances where it feels like that's a great thing, I guess, about reading the book now. After having one season of the show, it feels like things are better in the book than in the show, and then things are better in the show than the book. But it also feels like we're like in 3 seasons of the book as opposed to going into the 2nd season of the show because of how many chapters we've gone through now. So it'll be interesting seeing how they develop because what we left off with, the two of them was like, okay, we're gonna take down freaking A Train, and then I'm gonna go my way, you're gonna go your way, and but I still want to. It was left in a weird space, so it's definitely gonna be interesting seeing where they take them second season. But yeah, back to these false idol heroes. It was like I I definitely was interested in seeing what you was gonna say because I was like, man, this is like a really bullshit version of the JSA, and I know how Chad feels about the JSA. It's gonna be a great leading thing to go into talking about Stargirl in a minute. But it's like this was not necessary.
It was so mean. Basically, Mallory's backstory plays as a twisted Captain America. He fought the Nazis. He got experimented on. He did a bunch of dumb things. He hates a bunch of dumb people. And then he came back. He's like, Huey got to do the Huey things. And Huey takes off. And then the arc leaves off with Mallory standing in his kitchen drinking whiskey with a voice speaking to him from beyond the frame of the illustration, basically saying, "What did you tell him?" And Mallory goes, "I told him everything." And they had a little back and forth. And he basically just as the arc comes to an end, he goes, just stop talking and just get on with it and kill me already. So it's kind of implied that Butcher is there, and we see some shots throughout yes, we'll go shots. We saw some shots throughout this arc that kind of implied that Butcher was nearby, but like every time you saw him, it was with a voiceover and it was like, in a different context and what you think. It was kind of well done, but it was also kind of phoned in a lot of ways because like you kind of already knew, like you didn't need to leave the kind of leave it hanging like that. Like who could it be? If it, I mentioned this before. I've read a lot of the back half of the series. This is about where I started to read, and I don't remember definitively if Butcher's there, and I don't remember definitively if it was Butcher kills Mallory in this issue. But we'll find out because the next two books that we're reading are The Big Ride, which is 56 through 59, and then we're going to tackle the miniseries The Butcher, The Baker, and The Candlestick Maker. So those are the next two that we're doing for our Boys review. Marcus, so far thoughts on The Boys up until issue 55?
Yeah, it's good. Like I said, it's definitely definitely interesting. Definitely building up to a lot of what we know is coming or have seen. A lot of instances of it's just gonna be interesting seeing just how, like I said, because from my perspective, and obviously you may have read, like you said, more the back half of stuff, but there may not very well be any redemption for this character now because he's very much playing several different instances of the villains in this story now. Maybe even more so beyond Homelander at points. Um, and when I talk about no redemption, I'm talking about because, like I said, there's no resurrection in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no comeback because basically he lost his soul when he lost his wife, and he's not tried to get any piece of it back. Maybe in instances with bonding with Huey, but even that's been a means to an end. At times, it's been like a bit of a release for him to kind of have that human connection amongst all this efforty that he has to get involved in. But even that's a means to an end. So it's gonna be interesting just seeing just how well far he takes. Because when Huey dropped that line to Starlight, you said pray and hope there's something to wake up to. He's talking about one guy,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And that's Butcher. Because even at a disadvantage, he's causing this much chaos. In points where he could easily be wiped off the map. Like I said, like this is like you said, it's the freaking Monstars versus the Looney Tunes, with no Jordan. So, um, yeah, I'm definitely excited. It's like we got to take the good with the bad because Enos kind of goes off the rails whenever he feels like it, as opposed to like when there's actual space in the book. To like, oh, you can go off a little bit on the rails here, and it's like, nah, we're gonna put a dildo, a dog, and like you said, a Paralympian in this.
If they do half of this shit in the series that they're doing in this book, I don't know how they're going to get back on Amazon. I'm telling you what, this book has they got some stuff to work through. So let's talk about Justice League real fast and Snyder. So CBR is not known for doing good takes. They're a bad website. And this is coming from a guy who's taken a softer stance on website curators and writers because I get all of this shit. Try telling the world you don't think Tim Couch is a bust. Whew. You're going to have a lot of people calling you stupid, I'll tell you what. But one of the articles by Sergio Pereira finally landed, and it makes sense. He wrote, "Why Batman v Superman sparks such passionate debate, but other films don't." And he tackled a lot of the conversations, and it was kind of a no-point article up until the last paragraph or two, where he basically says, Zack Snyder's a polarizing director, and that's fair. But he also says, but when you look at one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, Watchmen, you have to remember that when it came out, it was slammed. And he's right. And this is one of the stances that you and I and Zach have been taking since BVS came out in 2016. Right, 2016? Yeah, that's right, 2016. Is that certain movies are so different from what you're getting at the time, they're not appreciated. So you have to wait a while. BVS is absolutely one of these films, and the comparison to Watchmen is something we've been saying, the three of us, on ComicCorp and RealNerdCorp.com for years now. And to hear other people start to say it from within the echo chamber of Marvel is really, I think, to me, a great thing. So many people will one day see this movie for what it is, a true masterclass. And it doesn't hurt that Zack Snyder has spent basically the last 4 years releasing like a little bit of nugget of information about the film like every few months just to keep people hooked on it. And as you and I talked before off the air, Snyder does have a director's commentary for BVS. And I can't wait to get my hands on that so I can listen and watch along and I can hear him talk about it. Because the one thing about Zack Snyder is he's kind of been falsely put in the same box as someone like Michael Bay. All flash, no substance. But on the contrary, I think Snyder is far more incredible at putting significant amounts of content into scenes that you don't really realize. The way someone's standing in a scene, or the part of their back that they're reaching to touch after an injury, or the way someone's subtly kind of watching that play out. Like all these little minor nuances that you don't think mean anything mean a whole hell of a lot. Some are obvious, like a bunch of Hispanic factory workers reaching up to him. Obviously, that's like a Jesus allegory. But there's also so much more beyond that I think makes him a truly fantastic filmmaker. And when you realize that the best filmmakers in the world, at least the most lauded and celebrated, view Snyder as either their contemporary or as better than them, that should tell you that Snyder actually has an idea what he's doing. He can add substance to something that has none, and he can add flash to something that you didn't think was possible. I'm not saying all of his films hit. I still look at Sucker Punch as a very missed film. I haven't watched it in years. Maybe I'll give it an opportunity. But when you think about a movie like 300, source material is not that deep. The original story is not that exciting. But Snyder was able to add this kind of almost Greek mythology aspect to it by making the person who betrayed the Spartans deformed and grotesque, and bringing on all these deformed and horrid monstrosities from Persia. You had the dude with the giant fucking saws in his arm. Like, what? That couldn't be
one of the most quotable films of all time. It's one of the most memorable films. It was the standard by which being a man was measured if you hadn't seen the film.
Yeah.
Whether or not you had seen the film at one point. Like and it's funny, people to call them all flash and no substance. There's more context and thought and depth in his flash than most directors or creators have in their so-called substance. Mm-hmm. Like the way he shoots that, like he actually makes you. Thor will never get. And I was thinking about this conversation because I was watching somebody talk about the Marvel movies and they called Thor trash because of, I guess, certain things that happened to him as the MCU went on. I'm like, Thor doesn't get dog walked by Thanos with 2 hammers in a Zack Snyder movie.
No.
It ain't happening. He is going to be every bit of the God of Thunder in every possible fashion of the word epic that you can possibly imagine. Like, they could say what they want about the characterization of the characters. You never once felt Like Batman wasn't Batman, Superman was a Superman, and Wonder Woman wasn't freaking Wonder Woman. And like you said, even beyond that, like just little nuances. Like one of my favorite things in BVS, of which there are a lot of things. They remind me to send you a Screen Rant article because I think they even went even more in depth about the great things about the movie than that CBR article. But just that conversation about Twin Clark and his mom, she was like, "Look, like at the end of the day, I don't care if you're an alien or whatnot, you're my son." And
Mm-hmm.
like any great parent to tell their kid, be everything they need you to be, or don't be anything at all. You don't owe them nothing. And I think that's the line that kind of separates a lot of how the fans view Zack Snyder's take on these characters. Like, because in their mind, like, no, he does owe the world everything. Because if if you can do it and you don't, then you're a piece of crap. It's like, yeah, but he's not obligated. Nobody, like it's go back to the freaking rocket line. People don't owe, they do because they want to do. Even if they're freaking, a god from another planet. So it's stuff like that to me that always make his movies far more in the top echelon of stuff than anything. I mean, the fact that we still talking about it, I don't see people doing retrospectives on freaking Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, and,
Come on, man.
and that goes back to what we were always saying. You know, I view the Marvel Cinematic Universe as hollow. I don't believe there's a lot of substance there. I don't believe there's a lot of depth there, and I don't believe there's a lot of reviewability there. I think they're going to age poorly. And you have to understand that these films, because they're made by so many different people with so many different restrictions or limitations or allowances, don't always make a consistent product. And I look at the last two films, and there's a lot of good scenes in those last two films, the Endgame and the Portals one.
Yeah, Infinity War.
Infinity War, yeah. Endgame is the Portals one, my bad. But, like, when Thor shows up on Earth and just wallops everyone with his new axe hammer, like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. When Falcon says on your left in Endgame, that's cool. But also, like, we knew that people weren't going to be dead because, in the first of the two films, because most of those guys that died have sequels coming out. So that was telegraphed. And then you had the biggest plot holes in the history of plot holes in Endgame. And people still don't realize that it's a goddamn plot hole. Fucking the Ancient One tells Banner you can't change time. It is linear. It cannot be changed. And then they change time.
It's and maybe I guess this where I go like, no, they know, they just don't care
Fair.
because
Fair.
this is the window in which they view how this stuff should be done in their mind, right? Like it's this is where the Flash is, and like you said, this is not taken away from the great moments. So many great moments, like when you really go back and watch uh the whole movie and see like the journey of Tony, even in just that one movie, you appreciate him more in the movies that come before going all the way back to the first Iron Man, and that's like where a great character arc and character writing is shown.
Mm-hmm.
Was things that you appreciate more, things that come before it. Once the characters reached a peak like that, but like you said, the plot, the driving force of the movie is a big ass plot hole. I like shake my head at people that try to explain the time travel stuff because you cannot do it. You can't. They didn't do it. It's like, what are you talking about? They gave you a half-assed explanation, and then they acknowledged that it was half-assed, and then they just went with it. And I guess in the movies like that, because they acknowledge the absurdity of it, it's all right.
They can.
That's not how
They have to go back. They have to take something from an exact point in time, and then go back and put it back before anything changes around it. But they can kill a early aged Thanos. What? Fucking movie makes no goddamn sense. It makes no goddamn sense. And it's completely destroyed by its nonsensical fucking time travel bullshit. Ugh. I just watched the fight scene at the end because it's the only good thing about that entire movie. That and when Scott goes home and sees his daughter and the look on her face when she realizes it's her dad and she just leaps into his arms like, oh my God. You know
Yeah,
me,
that
just every time.
no, I mean you're 100% right. I mean that was one of the first things that you praised when the movie first came out was that Scott Lang saying how much you loved it, and I was right there with you, and it was brilliantly played by what's the actor's name? I was going to call him Scott Lang, but
Paul Rudd. I was about
Paul
to call him
Rudd, yeah.
Scott Lang too.
Yeah, me too. I was like, what's Scott Lang's name?
Scott Lang's
like
played by Scott Lang, right?
exactly. Oh,
Paul Rudd
brilliantly
looks
played
like
by
a Scott Lang.
exactly. Um, and just that, I mean, the kickoff scene, like, hey kid, what happens here? And he just looks at him like, you piece of crap. He said, just rides off, and then the rabbit hole of realization that he went down. I mean, just imagine being in the world we are now and going to a graveyard to look for your name,
Mm-hmm.
look for people's name, because to you, it's been a few hours, maybe a day, and you wake up and 5 years have gone by, and the world is completely turned on his head. So that was greatly played, and then like I said, the movie is saved by moments like that from the minute that Cap and Tony met, and then the everything they went through to go through that moment of do you trust me? I do. And then that whole thing would have been cool to see them get one last moment when he died, but things went another way. But even that moment going back to Thor, that moment with his mom was phenomenal. That whole thing. Like his power scaling is on the DBZ side of the game. But that great emotional moment that he had with his mom, I thought was some really good stuff. So it's saved by a lot of emotional moments that have been brought forth over 10 years and 20 some odd movies. But yeah, you can't deny that movie's flaws, but because the fan base is set up the way that it is, and their credibility is such of almost non-reproach at this point, they just allow passes where they just refuse to give DC. Like in their mind, Aquaman was in their mind, I guess, the Iron Man 2 of DC, while Birds of Prey is Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
Like,
fuck that idea right the hell off.
I don't have a gun big enough to shoot you.
The Winter Soldier of DC is Dark Knight Rises. It's perfect. Even if there's a plot hole, I don't care. Tom Hardy is peak Bane, and Bane quotes are the best quotes. In fact, Marcus, you're going to love this. Last night on Making an Impact, which you can find at realnerdcorp.podbean.com or on the website realnerdcorp.com, we joked about how Picard has gone off the rails as a show. And I'm going to give you a spoiler. I don't think you care. Have you been watching Picard?
No, but it was funny in my mind now because I've seen a lot of complaints, and now I just start calling it Pickard.
Yep, Pickard. All right, we're gonna roll with that. So at the end of Pickard, it's revealed that Picard himself has like a brain cancer thing going on, and he's dying. So they transfer his conscience into a body, like a robotic cybernetic cybernetic kind of body. But it's a body that looks just like the body he was in, only with more beard, and he's still old, and he's still gonna die of natural causes, but not cancer anymore. So it's like, wait, then what's the point?
That sounds like the rough draft of what his arc was going to be in Logan.
Yes. And the best part is we're like, well, why not just, instead of doing all that, just bring back the clone of Picard. Back in 2002 for Star Trek Nemesis, a young Tom Hardy played a very thin version of Picard as a clone. So we're like, why not just bring Tom Hardy back now, but all jacked and swole like he is, and we just call him Jean-Luc Baincard, and we put him on the Starship Enterprise, and like every time he interacts with like an alien in the Star Trek universe, he just does a Bane quote. we had like a good 15 minutes of riffing on this alone. It's fantastic.
You think gravity is your ally?
Klingon shows up. We are the Klingons. Baincard shows. And you think this gives you power over me? So it's fun. Go listen if you're a new listener and haven't watched it before or listened to us before. But as far as Batman v Superman goes, it's going to be seen as a modern classic eventually. Because even the scenes that were mocked have so much substance to them. You know, everyone makes fun of the Martha scene, but it's maybe one of my favorite scenes because of what it instills in Batman. He says really early into the movie, after, what was it, 20 years? Is that how long he's been at it? After 20 years, how many heroes are left, or how many are still alive and how many heroes are still left, and something to that effect. Basically implying that he knows himself. He's going down that way. And Superman, you know, at various times in the movie calls him, you know, psychotic. And even Alfred questions Batman's sanity in kind of lesser degrees. And it's really being kind of emphasized that Batman's losing his own morality. He's losing his own soul. And then when Superman says, you know, save Martha, you know, all Batman knows is that Martha's some person who shares the same name as his mother. And he stops himself and he's like, what? And Lois Lane goes, it's his mother. And that's when Batman realizes that this isn't some god that needs to die. This is just someone's son. And like, it's such a humanizing moment for not just Batman, who's pulled back to reality in essence. It's also a humanizing moment for Superman, who's always seen as a god, overpowered. How can you write and how can you write a character like that? And you see in that moment how you can do it by showing him, you know, he's just a kid. He's just someone's kid.
It's like you said, and it's people's refusal to even acknowledge that, because I guess again it's allowances that they give one that they don't give the other.
No,
because you know they'll dig that out of a fluffy Marvel scene, but in this they'll need it to be said that now I finally see. They have the character will literally say, "Oh, now I see this character as a human," for them to be like, "Oh, that's what he meant," because because it can't be deeper than that. No, he said Martha. What you say, Martha? And it's like, oh, you got my mom's name. I guess I can't kill you. Like, really? Come on, really? You want to be that shallow with this movie because you hate the characterizations that much. So but I mean, even everything leading up to it, like he was telling him, like you're not he was juxtaposing to how he was raised. Like my parents taught me that, what was the line? Parents taught me that you have to fight or something. I forgot the exact line that he was giving him when he was dragging him across the floor, but he framed him as this thing. Brilliant conversation he had with Alfred, like you said, and that was just a piece of it. Like, Jesus, Alfred, count the dead. Like, count the dead, and then people are like, oh my God, Batman, he turned Batman into a villain. I'm like, do you not realize how stupid it is for Batman to constantly go up against somebody like the Joker, go through something like what he did to not only Barbara Gordon, but then
Jason Todd.
Jason Todd, and still not put him down, which is why that animated Red Hood movie is so brilliant. Like, it's lunacy. It's lunacy for him to keep going like that, and just he's trying to be the interrupter in this vicious cycle, but he's also becoming the key component to why it keeps going. Like, it's kind of like why we compared Arrow to Batman so much. It's like, and I think it was freaking Detective Lance that called him out on like one of the early seasons. Like, we wouldn't have even had all these menacing assholes in this city if you weren't here. You brought out these clowns, and that's a lot of what's wrong with Gotham. Like, he's incited a lot of these things, which is why Begins is one of my favorite movies. It's like, you've incited a lot of stuff. It was like, we buy bulletproof vests, they get armor-piercing rounds, constant escalation because of stuff like this. So for him to just get to a point where, like, I'm getting too old for this, anybody that gets in my way is getting put down. And it's not like I'm seen as this beacon of light anyway. That's not the Batman. So for people to go at it like, and again, even if you don't like the thing, like comics, this is just another version of these characters in Zack Snyder's world. But the way that he used these characters to tell like these more in-depth stories that kind of go beyond these characters, again, something else these people don't like. I think it was brilliant and to stand the test of time. Why are we still talking about it now? because he placed them in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we had Superman today, like you think some of these asses would be like, oh, you don't got corona vision? You can't cure corona? You can fly your ass across the world and save some illegal refugees, but you ain't got nothing to cure my mom's cancer? Like that's who we are at this point. So
Yeah, and it does a great job putting them both into that context of the modern lens. And I've had this debate with Zach before, and I don't mean it in the sense that I'm saying it, but Batman's the worst superhero of all time because he's the only one who's going to let his morals get in the way of what needs to be done. If he just went, all right, the Joker's killed 20,000 people, I keep letting him live. I probably shouldn't. That would be a good thing, dropping the dude finally. But instead, he's like, I can't kill. No guns. And it's just like, this dude is so steadfast on trying to win, but he doesn't realize that winning incurs, actual, death. It's a different thing for Superman because, he doesn't seem to always have to deal with the fallout of a massive body count. He just kind of goes,
yeah,
no, Parasite, you're going back into your cell. And Parasite's like, aw, shucks.
don't drop that line about body counts after Man of Steel. So that whole thing still there. But it's I mean, like 100% right. And going back to that screenwriting article I read, like you go back and look at Dark Knight, the Joker won.
Mm-hmm.
Like he won. Like his goal wasn't to make, and they pointed this out in the article. Like his goal wasn't to get Batman to kill him. It was to get somebody like
it was to tarnish. It's to tarnish Harvey Dent, but instead he ended up tarnishing Batman.
Yeah, Dark Harvey Dent, and then in case ended up making Batman inadvertently, have to kill him, and like you said about the tarnishing Batman. So stuff like that is well executed. But the whole thing about Batman doesn't kill this, that, and the third is like. So I'm guessing if he kills in what you perceive to be a better movie, then it don't count.
You can't see it, but I'm doing that. Yeah, shrug.
Yeah.
You ain't wrong. Let's move on to StarGirl. We are getting a lot of information, including sidekicks, stills. The look of Stripe is fantastic. I'm very excited about that. He looks so good. CGI budget must be huge, though. We also got to look at a few of the JSA members. It looks like they're going to be kind of following suit with Stargirl's original introduction in the comics. When she was brought in, the JSA was kind of phasing out and expanding into younger stars or younger characters, but were taking up mantles. So you had a new Dr. Midnight, you had a new Hourman, you had Liberty Bell, who used to be Jesse Quick. So you were starting to establish newer heroes within the JSA, and it looks like they're going to go with younger, newer heroes in the show as well. And they even reference that they're going to be bringing in the Seven Soldiers of Victory, which was a predecessor to the JSA. So it might be that the JSA is going to be modernized completely to the point where the JSA might be like a spin-off or like a sequel group to the Seven Soldiers of Victory. So the JSA might be just starting in Stargirl, which I'm fine with. That's not a big to-do. But the other big point of emphasis is that apparently Stargirl will involve Green Lantern and a different Flash, according to Geoff Johns. So Johns told IGN, Green Lantern and Flash are spoken of and they exist in the JSA. There's a picture of them in the first episode and there's plans in the future for things, but Jay Garrick and Alan Scott, to me, are always the elderly statesmen. They're the big heroes of the JSA, and their shadow is very long, and they're great characters. They are part of the original JSA, and their legacies will be felt through the show. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but I can leave it at that. And I'm very happy about that. Alan Scott's one of the rare characters that has yet to actually be brought to any type of live action in any substantial way. He had a minor cameo in Smallville season 9 when the JSA got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
You saw him getting locked up, and you could see his ring, and that was it. That was all. That's all he got.
Yeah, they it's a full throwback as Smallville is at this point. they did a pretty damn good job with the JSA in terms like that Dr. Fate outfit was cold for its time. You know, we always sing the praise of Hawkman. Like they had some good stuff. Like just the fact that they kind of showed them, or they basically gave it like a tribute to them in a glass case.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the Green Lantern ring was a little lantern ring. I thought that was great.
That's actually the way it was designed back in the 30s and 40s. So like that was like an accurate representation of what Alan Scott's ring looked like.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, great.
Now, the funny thing is, like you think about it, Jay Garrick's had time on the Flash. We've
Mm.
seen Adam. He was a villain in season 2. Hawkman was a big component in both the Smallville and Flash series, or not Flash, Legends of Tomorrow. You've had Wildcat. He was the boxer in season 3 of Arrow. We've basically hit like just about all of the truly big names with the JSA except for Alan Scott. There's still some minor guys, Sandman being one of them. I'm hoping to see him because he's a real cool character. Whenever he dreams, whenever he sleeps, he dreams of murders and awful crimes that happen. So when he wakes up, he then goes solves them, but the nightmares are so intense that it makes him not want to sleep. So he's constantly drinking coffee and fighting off the urge to sleep. He's basically me.
That's yeah. Like anybody that's been listening to us for a long time, like one of the reasons why just one of the reasons why I'm excited for this series, besides the fact that to see just how closely Geoff Johns is working with it, which means Berlanti may not be as close. um,
One can
it
hope.
looks like he's on set, like close to it, and it's kind of like shooting in the black pitch of night. Sometimes with Berlanti with some of how this stuff goes, but this Harley Quinn, Doom Patrol, Wish You Still Swamp Thing, but they kind of on a roll a bit. I think me and you need to go eventually have to check out that Deathstroke on the Go app or the Seed or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Um, that goes. It's so much stuff at this point, but like I said, anybody that's been listening knows that we watched the season of Legends that had them on there. Didn't get the proper justice they deserve, even though that first beginning fight that they had was cool, accompanied by some great music. Didn't exactly get delivered how my brother here wanted, so I'm kind of looking for them to redeem those characters for Chad, so he could be able to boast about them because he really wasn't able to, they basically threw StarGIRL to the plot instead of, how she should have been represented. So I think this show is going to give a lot of redemption to the characters like Wildcat, who kind of got prematurely cut an arrow, and like you said, obviously StarGIRL and other names that, wasn't necessarily given a proper due by the larger Arrowverse. They can kind of get contained here and hopefully not get melded too quickly into these other shows like people be unnecessarily begging for. So
Yeah, I'm fine with this show existing in another Earth. Because as we've already mentioned, that all these DC shows are going to be technically interwoven somehow because of the end of the Infinity Crisis, or Infinite Crisis, excuse me, different crises. But the one thing I'm hoping is that this universe will be able to stand on its own and breathe on its own, because I can't do another JSA that fucking Greg Berlanti brought to us, because that was atrocious. Fucking Stargirl's a goddamn. I don't want to sound like it's going to, but she's a hand-me-down hero. She wouldn't be there in the first place. she only existed because she took Starman's fucking staff. Where's Starman? And fucking Our Man is just some random ass. Like, where's Our Man's mask? Where's his fucking cape and cowl? So mad. So mad. And then they make Stargirl Merlin, like the titular historical mythology of Merlin. An old white dude with crazy beard hair becomes a fucking 25-year-old sex bot blonde. What? No. Your political policies and your gender identity and your just desire to have gendered what's the goddamn term I'm looking for? It's one of those identity. There it is. Identity policies thrown right into the show for no reason. Like, you don't need to write this into the show, but you're going to do it because you want the greatest magician of all time to be a woman. All right. Season 3 can't be any worse. Oh, wait, never mind.
We already had the greatest magician, female. Her name was Zatanna Zahara. She appeared in Smallville, played by a very beautiful actress named Surrender Swan.
She's got it going on. Little shout out too to the lead singer of Fountains of Wayne. He also did the music for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And Mark, did you ever see the movie The Wonders with Tom Hanks?
No.
It's going to be right up your alley. It's set in the 60s, and it follows a band from Erie, Pennsylvania that ends up losing their drummer to a broken arm, so they bring in a new guy. And they do a talent show, and the new guy doesn't keep tempo, and he goes really fast in the song, and the song ends up becoming a smash hit with the new pace. And so it follows them as they rise to stardom, and they're touring, and their eventual downfall as a one-hit wonder, which is where the Wonders title and name band come from. Really good music. Tom Hanks is phenomenal. Great cast. Steve Zahn's in it, and I love Steve Zahn. Liv Tyler's in it, but the guy who wrote the music for that, especially the song That Thing You Do, which was the big hit from the movie, started Fountains of Wayne and did the music for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Really well respected, well known, very popular lead singer. He passed away from the coronavirus, actually, on April 1st, I believe. So shout out to him. He did great music, soundtrack of the early 2000s. And Marcus, I'm sure you've heard of Stacy's mom.
Yeah.
Well, he's the singer and songwriter for that. So every time you hear Stacy's mom, that's who we're talking about. That's Fountains of Wayne. So he passed away. So quick little shout out to him. But yeah, StarGIRL gonna be fantastic. At least I hope it is. It looks fantastic. I'm not a big Luke and Owen Wilson guy, and I often confuse them. Luke is the one that's in StarGIRL. Yes, he's the one that doesn't have the fucked up nose.
Yes. Yeah, it's Luke.
He might be my favorite of the two, but I don't know. We'll see how that's like the one, like that being a Berlanti produced show, that freaks me the fuck out. Being Luke Wilson in this, that's... But everything else I'm on board with so far. I'm trying to stay away from a lot of trailers and stuff like that. And Breck Rollins, great name, by the way, Breck. It's a great name. She looks fantastic in the role, and she's essentially how I have envisioned a live-action StarGirl. Maybe with more curly hair, but I'm fine with that. I like curly hair. It's cool. I say rock your bad self. So I'm looking forward to this. I don't know when it's going to come out, though. This show's supposed to be out late last year on the CW, not CW, the DC All Access, or DC, whatever it's called, the DC app. Then it got moved to CW, and it was supposed to come out like next month or this month. But we'll see what happens with the corona of it all. Things are up in the air. And I also checked for Amazon's release date for Boys Season 2. It's still just saying sometime in April or May. So
They are cock teasing the hell out of that thing.
Right?
Not yeah, apparently it's all going to be May 11th.
May 11th?
Yeah.
I might be dead by the corona by then. Come on, Amazon. Put that shit out already. Like, what else?
Tell my mom. Well, yeah, I was telling my mom yesterday, I'm like, this damn year is going to be marked by two things. Kobe's death and this.
Maybe the Rona got Kobe and we don't even know about it yet. Maybe he was the first casualty. Speaking of casualties, Comic Hub's distribution system not moving forward. Comic Hub distribution solution to the comic industry's coronavirus turmoil will not be implemented. So, for those of you not aware, there are no comics being shipped right now. Considering the state of DC Comics, that's not a bad thing. DC Comics, the actual comic brand of the DC Comics side of things is in turmoil. There are rumors that they might be shuttering their doors or selling off the printing process of the books, just the books, to Marvel, not the entire library. There's a lot of upheaval about the DC Comics brand right now, and it doesn't look like the merger with, who was it, Warner Brothers, who were they owned by? Warner Media? They merged with somebody. I think it's like AT&T or Sprint or something like that. Do you remember?
Once I thought it was Warner Media. Maybe I was wrong.
Well,
DC.
Warner merged with somebody. AT&T. It's Time Warner and AT&T. AOL Time Warner merger.
Yeah.
And it looks like AT&T and Time Warner don't really see a value in the comic side of things. So there's rumors that the DC comics as we know them might be going away. Who knows? But there's already upheaval in the comic industry right now, and now no one's sending out books. So Comic Hub had a solution idea to the issue. The Comic Hub Advanced Digital Reader Copy Initiatives isn't going to move forward right now. Retailer John Hendricks of Big Bang Comics told Newsarama. Unfortunately, publishers who are interested in joining the platforms now aren't, and we can 100% understand the decision despite the positive reception by customers and creators. This might not be a long-term solution, but we didn't need it to be one. We just needed it to tide us over until the industry returns to normal, whatever that is, but hopefully is soon. The original plan to allow customers to order comics through Comic Hub, a point-of-sale system used by retailers that allows readers to purchase books from their local comic shops online, which would give them access to digital version of the comics. The local comic shops would get the money for the order and would be responsible for giving the consumers physical copies of the comics at the conclusion of the outbreak. The hope was that through this method, retailers, publishers, and creators would still be paid. With the collapse of the Comic Hub plan, the retailers and readers have no way of receiving new comics following the Diamond Comics distribution, shipment, and payment suspension. I believe the big situation that came with this, I'm going to see if I can't find the article real fast, centered around Image pulling out of this. Let me see if I can't find that. Let's see. I just saw it today. Where was it? Nope, that's not where I wanted to go. Here we go. So Image Comics not part of Digital First program. On April 1st, news broke that Comic Hub was stepping in to help get new comics into the hands of readers during the COVID-19 outbreak and the Diamond Comics distribution shutdown. At the time, CBR reached out to multiple publishers for comment, including Marvel, DC, Boom, and Dark Horse, among others. Now, Image Comics has responded to confirm the company is opting out of the temporary distribution method. No other publishers have commented at the time of the writing. The new process is being implemented via Comic Hub. We already talked about all that. So there's no reason given as to why Image pulled out, but considering that Comic Hub is essentially putting in a template or a roadmap to essentially close down every comic shop in America through this methodology, it makes sense that Image would prioritize retailers over a subscription-based service. So if that was the case for what Image was doing, protecting the comic shops, I applaud them. If it was a financial thing where they weren't getting enough back, well then, I guess that's just capitalism. Marcus, would you be in favor of being able to read your monthly comics or your weekly comics on a digital basis during the COVID-19 outbreak? Or do you want to wait, see how things turn out, and go back to your normal reading schedule when things settle down?
I mean, I wouldn't mind, but that's just me. I've not been... unfortunately, I've not really had that experience where, like, how people are, like, even with the boom of what we're seeing with these streaming services, just the movie experience is something you just can't get unless you have, like, a truly expensive, immaculate setup at home. It's just, those reactions, the ambiance, if you will, is just something you can't necessarily duplicate. So being able to go into a store and crack open or just look or something and get that first fresh edition, it's, for long-time fans like yourself, that's an experience that you can't duplicate. Mm-hmm. But because quality hasn't always matched quantity, specifically lately, I think it's easy to kind of be more nitpicky and make things more readily available, and from a digital perspective, which we've seen grow anyway. So, yeah, I'd be open to that, but I would also hope that once things settle down at these shops, who have been suffering for a while now, will be able to get some traffic back in their shops, because it's something unique you just can't get with that digital experience.
You want me back in your shops, DC? Fucking fire Brian Michael Bendis. Then I'll show up. Beyond that, this is some funny ass shit. We got a lot of news stories this week that I think were relevant, so we're gonna keep rolling because we got another 3 or 4. The certified what? Hang on. How do you pronounce that? The certified guarantee company, the CGC. I don't think that's right. That's right. Has confirmed that the COVID-19 pandemic will not halt operations, though a few changes are being made. The CGC is the comic grading company that when you take in old issues of a comic, they will apprise them, look through them to see if there's any issues with the book, with the smudges, to see how everything looks, if there's anything cut out. And based off the quality of the book that you bring in, they'll give it an official grade, and they'll put it in a plastic container. On the screen, you'll see that like the Amazing Fantasy, which was the first issue of Spider-Man, not first issue, but the first appearance of Spider-Man, is graded as a 9.2 because of the quality of the book. Then there's a Dark Phoenix one that's graded at a 9.8. And they're essentially the only game in town that can quantify and qualify what the grade of your book is, depending on how old it is. Essentially, they are not they are not an essential business. But they released a statement saying the CGC explained that both its headquarters in Sarasota, Florida, and its office is in across the pond in London will remain open and operational for the time being. The company says it meets a number of criteria for essential services, according to Florida Executive's Orders 20 to 91 issued on April 1st by Governor Ron DeSantis, the guy who didn't know that the coronavirus was transmittable even if there's no symptoms until April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day, folks. Explaining that its reasoning, the company went on to say that the executive order specifically defines essential services to include among many others, businesses that interact with customers electronically or by telephone and deliver products through the mail, manufacturing facilities, businesses that supply other essential businesses, and businesses that provide access to financial services, including non-bank financial services. While CGC is continuing operations, however, it is also implementing added measures to curb potential spread of the coronavirus. The company previously said that it would be introducing enhanced cleaning and safety procedures. Considering, Marcus, this is actually a company that already has enhanced cleaning and safety procedures to handle these books to make sure that nothing happens to them. I'm curious to know what that extraness will imply. Back to the article. With this new update, customer drop-offs and pickups at CGC's Florida headquarters have been suspended entirely, including the recently introduced contactables, curbside drop-off, and pickups. Oh, contactless. That's not how you spell contactless. Contactless. There's a hyphen there, you fucking twerps. I swear to God, reading a writer's work who doesn't know how to actually say things and write them out makes me feel stupid. And I don't like feeling stupid.
Like, damn it, I betrayed my own brain for you.
Additionally, employees are able to do substantial portion of their work from home will not be required to do so. So, there you go.
I mean, in a way, I guess that's good. You know, that first half is great for collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, you know, we've seen it on TV before. You know, don't touch my, kitchen can burn, but don't touch my first edition type of deal. And it's cool because, I mean, you got comic collectors, shoe collectors, lunchbox collectors. It's different. It's a culture out here. Maybe not one that's not talked about a lot, but yeah, that's cool to a certain aspect. But, you know, in a lot of ways, you can't put a quantitative level of how relevant or the meaning of a comic is for a lot of these guys because it's the, you know, their first escape. You know, the thing they related to the most. That, again, these comics mean more than, it's almost feels like a lot of ways like what we used to do in middle school with Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Well, I'm a little bit older, so for me it was Pokemon cards, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, like, oh, he got the hollow though. The hollow. It's like Jesus. Like now you older, you appreciate money more because you have less of it. Like, okay, it sparkles. Ooh.
You got the shiny Charizard. Sit down there, Steve.
Like, look, if the one that's not shiny, um, is it harder to tear that it's hollow than it's non-shiny? Or no, then it's the same damn thing to me. So it's yeah, that's an interesting. Like I say, it's great for collectors, but I find it hard to tell somebody exactly, how relevant their comic is when it's something as subjective as because the number one to you is just like completely something else to somebody else. So that's a cool concept. I don't know how much longevity they have in it though.
So the word I couldn't say, warranty. It's actually guarantee, but it's spelled Guaranty. And
What?
yeah. Apparently, there's a different form of guarantee, but it implies a specific set of restrictions and promises within the guarantee, which makes it a completely different word, but it still means a guarantee. So, like, I'm sitting here trying to pronounce guarantee because I'm like, what the fuck's a warranty? No, it's a guarantee. It's just spelled dumbly. Yeah!
It's,
I've
it's
never
funny
seen it
because
spelled like that. I felt so dumb.
yeah, it's funny because it takes me back to this thing I was watching this guy say because he stays in Atlanta. Uh, he said he went to Atlanta and he was looking for a street. Um, and the street was Ponce de Leon.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess because of the neighborhood or how people referenced it, that they just sounded out how they think it looks. So to a lot of people, the guy was asking people like, "Do you know where I can get? How can I get to Ponce de Leon?" Like Ponce de Leon? You mean Ponce de Leon?
I mean, I get it. I mean, think about it. Yeah, like, how do we pronounce aluminum? How do the British pronounce aluminum? Aluminium. There's always something that gets lost in translation. I
Yeah.
respect that. But yeah, so that was my gaffe because I didn't realize that there was a different spelling for guarantee, and I felt so dumb. This might be interesting to you. It might not be, but it's interesting to me, and it's probably something we're going to talk more about on Saturday for GameCorp. Resident Evil film reboot character breaks down Surface. So let's see. Do they just list? Nope. Now, why would they just list it? They have to put it in the article. So Daniel Richmond posted the information to his Patreon alongside attached talent and crew. The leads of the film are Chris Redfield and his sister Claire. Well, that's already dumb. Chris is described as a wholesome and handsome and serves as Raccoon City's police officer, while Claire returns to her old home to convince him to leave. The two grew up in an orphanage where other children were mysteriously disappear. When Raccoon City is overrun by zombies, Claire and Chris learn that many of their fellow orphans were experimented on by the umbrella corporations. Kea Scoladario from The Maze Runner and Bretton Thwaites from Titans are being approached for Chris and Claire, respectively. I am all fine with some more dick in my world. Marcus, if they get Dick Grayson to play, God, she's gorgeous. Kayla Scoladario is, whoa, I think we picked the wrong WCW this week, Marcus. Kea Scoladario. Scoladario. She's obviously from the Mediterranean. Don't ask my tongue to actually pronounce her name correctly. Kayaskolario. And then, of course,
Wait a
Brendan.
minute. Where do I know her from?
That's the Maze Runner.
What moved it? Oh, okay. She was gotcha. Oh, and then I just watched her in Crawl. Okay, gotcha.
So what was the first movie? Because you didn't really say it. You're just like, oh, yeah, I know her. And then I saw her in Crawl. Like, what?
No, you said it because it was Maze Runner. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
she's the Dr. Chick Maze Runner. Then I just seen her in Crawl, which is a movie when this she gets left behind in a hurricane with her dad in New Orleans, and because of the area they live in, they get surrounded and attacked by gators. So yeah.
That sounds not fun at all. So what's Crawl about anyway? Oh, it's about gators. Duh. Never mind. Uh,
Yes.
wait, was this the one where like they're like in Louisiana or Florida and a hurricane hits and like the trailer had like a gator like trapping them around the house that's flooded?
Yes, that was one.
Okay.
Yeah, they was trapped in their basement. Yes.
Okay. That's Barry Pepper's in this. Huh. But yeah, so Brenton Thwaites, I think I'm saying that right. From Titans, he played
Yeah.
Dick. Good old Dick. Good old hard body Dick. Good old Dick just keeps coming and coming again. If you see Resident Evil's Kayla Scodelario, or I shouldn't say Resident Evil, I should say the Maze Runner. Kayla Scodelario? That's close enough. And Brenton Thwaites in a movie called Resident Evil. Marcus, would you be inclined to go see it?
Yeah. Yeah. I've become a big fan of the Dick. Titans. Scudario, she can handle herself quite well as well. So yeah, it'll be cool seeing those two talents play off each other, and hopefully, they are in a situation where they aren't the only good thing in a film. That the film actually supports their ability to execute, because we've seen so many instances where it's been the opposite. So yeah, but I definitely like to see those two on screen.
Now, I was originally really kind of like, this sounds dumb. But then I read the next paragraph, and apparently other characters for the film include Leon Kennedy, who is a fellow cop that joins Chris and Claire in fighting the raccoon infestation, Dr. William Birkin, a scientist who worked for Umbrella, Albert Wesker, another cop who was killed while looking to steal confidential information from Umbrella, Jill Valentine, and Ada Wong. So it sounds like what they're going to do is mash up the two games stories into one movie and kind of ignore the mansion incident, or at least minimize the mansion incident, which was the catalyst of the first game. That sounds a bit more like something I would want to watch, because my whole concern is wanting to see an accurate representation of or at least a faithful, maybe not accurate, but a faithful representation of what we got in the Resident Evil games. I'm not a big fan of the Resident Evil games, but I've played all 6, 7 mainline games. So, like, I don't know, maybe I am. It's kind of like that moment where you realize that you've been drinking bubblies. You ever have one of those bubblies, Marcus? They got Michael Bublé, and he calls them, get your Bublés, and someone's like, they're called bubblies, Michael, and he's like, get your Bublés. You ever try one of those?
No.
Some of them are really good. Some of them just taste like seltzer water. But cherry and lemon for me are peak. And I started drinking them just as like an alternative. That they're not really bad for you comparatively. Like, it's not like pop, or as you people down there would say, soda. Southern. Fucking what's wrong with you people? It's called pop. But it's better than pop. It's better than fruit drinks or anything with a loads amount of sugar. And sometimes I'm just looking for something to, God, this is gonna sound terrible, put in my mouth. So like sometimes I'll snack on things that don't really have a lot of substance to it, and that includes sometimes I'll grab something to drink, and these are far better for you than just grabbing a can of Coke or a line of Coke. I don't know. You do you. But I started drinking them just to drink them, and now I find myself enjoying them, and I'm kind of like, when did that happen? And that's kind of how I feel about the Resident Evil franchise. I was playing them just to play them. Never would say that they were my favorite games of all time, but now I'm kind of sitting here going, how did that happen? I played all of them. Most of them. I played all of the main console ones, except for Code Veronica and Zero. So I haven't played all of them. I played most of them, though. So, yeah, I'm interested in seeing this, and it should be interesting. Marcus, we got some Titans news, some Teton news. Apparently, Titans director and cinematographer Boris, oh God, fuck me, Mojavovsky? So, all right, we're gonna redo this. Titans director and cinematographer Boris Mojo Jojo confirmed that Barbara Gordon will appear in season 3 of the DC Universe series. We're just gonna keep going. Titans director, we already said that. Titans confirmed that, Mojo Jojo confirmed in a new Q&A with fellow Titans cinematographer Brendan Stacy. Stacy? It's spelled Steacy, which would give you the idea that it's Stacy or Stacy, but it might be pronounced Stacy, so we're going to just say Stacy. According to Mojo Jojo, Gordon will appear in the first episode of the new season, which will take place in Gotham. No casting or plot details were announced. So We don't know which version of Barbara Gordon we're getting, but can I take a hot take? May not be popular. May not be unpopular. I don't know. I won't say definitively all-time number one, but 1960s Batgirl costume in my upper echelon of best costumes in a live-action series. There's just something about the purple and gold that works.
Let's see.
I know it's not exactly the hottest of takes, but
Girl, 1966. I mean, look, man, it's got its flair.
yeah,
It's got a flair. Can't lie about that.
very Power Rangers-esque, I feel.
Yeah, it just pops. I mean, that's perfect cosplay material. Like you said, it's the gold on the purple. Not gonna give a shout out to the Tigers on that. No, but it's good, and then it got that sparkle to it and different things. It's a good costume. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Definitely a fan of it myself. So Marcus, how do you feel about Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, aka Oracle, popping up in Titans season 3? That's Titans for those of you uninitiated with our review of the series.
Exactly. Go back and check that out because we haven't forgot it. And now that we're talking about this, it makes me go back to that review that we did and how by the time we got to the end of it, we realized I don't think any of us ended up being high on the season, even though we enjoyed a lot of moments in it overall. Just a lot of lack of proper execution. So I think one of the main things that we said, and while this is a cool thing to hear about, one of the things that we said was the last thing that this show needs is more characters.
Yeah. Well, they helped us out by getting rid of Donna Troy.
Yeah, but that wasn't one we actually wanted to go, and the way that they killed her off. And the way that they killed her off, and I'm borrowing 4 of Chad's fingers to add to my quotations, because that may or may not be a thing. I mean, I don't think you would want to get rid of an actress like Connor Leslie, and that character was really good, but it just, that death is just head scratching. But it's like watching Thor get electrocuted in Ragnarok. It's like, is he the god of thunder or what? Like, what is going on here?
It's like watching Fat Thor. Just depressing.
Exactly. It's like watching the opposite of that scene, that great scene in what that was in Static, where the Joker thought he was about to shock Batman and it was Static. He was like, hey, he got his ass. That was good. But yeah, like I said, it's a cool concept. You know, they've shown that they can cast some really good actors. But it's the execution of the characters those actors have to play. So we'll see, you know, because now you're going to have her. Apparently, you know, we know that Starlight sister's supposed to be a big thing on Earth because we can't go to Tamarin. So we're going to see, man, if they're going to learn from some of the clear mistakes that they made last season. So hopefully she's kind of just, she's more so in the vein of Supergirl's caretaker than, you know, sticking around the whole season because it's cool. Like I said, as cool as it sounds, I just can't trust them. They have to regain our trust for season 3.
More Dove now.
Exactly. Period.
How do we make the show better? More Dove. It was right under her nose the entire time. Speaking of which, I don't know why what you said made me think of this, but did you see Impact this week?
No, not this week.
Okay, well, there's a scene where Rosemary's in a bar talking about how, you know, she's experienced love with friendship, but now with all her friends gone, she's just going to use the mortals for her own shits and giggles. So she's going to essentially fuck them, is what she was ramping up to. And there's this dude who kind of looks like Cassidy Riley sitting at a bar, and Rosemary starts hitting on him. And Zach's like, you know, I kind of expected that to be someone. I'm like, right? You know, like Andy Douglas, Chase Stevens. And I'm like, you know, Elite Skipper. And it's a white dude. And that's exactly what I was hoping to hear. And I even lamented, like, man, that's a good joke. Should have said it with Marcus on the air, because he would have appreciated that. Just, you see this white dude with, like, big, long hair, taps him on the shoulder. Guy turns around, all of a sudden it's the Elite Skipper. Elite Skipper is a bald black man, for those of you who don't understand who I'm talking about. So it's a very funny visual.
Oh man.
He's just wearing like a white suit around him. The face of the guy is actually just Elite's face stuck through like a cardboard cutout hole.
Like an in-person catfish, the supernatural wrestler.
Right? Oh, God, that would have been great. So one last thing, just kind of a little bit of a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Disney Plus adds X-Men user profile image options. Disney Plus has added several avatars based on the X-Men the animated series, so if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you can now have your own favorite X-Men character. Apparently it's Wolverine, Rogue, Storm, Beast, Gambit, Jubilee, Jean Grey, and Xavier. Oh, and Cyclops. So Cyclops, Beast, Wolverine, Jubilee, Gambit, Storm, Jean Grey, Rogue. They're not animated, they're not illustrated. They're they look more CGI than anything, but they look good. So if you got,
it's keeping it, yeah, it's keeping those characters in that show alive again. It's the standard for X-Men. It has to be. We got severely let down by the live adaptation. Like it's that. I think you always throw credit to Wolverine and X-Men. I always throw credit to X-Men Evolution. So clearly, like Fantastic Four, the animated version's got it done far better.
For me, I like X-Men and the X-Men Evolution. I really do. My only gripe with it was it came in around the same way that Batman Beyond did, where I was so entrenched with Batman the Animated Series and X-Men the Animated Series that when we got Batman Beyond and X-Men Evolution, I'm like, this isn't what I was watching. Fuck this. I'm like 9, 10, 12 years old. I'm like, no, not for me. Different. Bad.
That's all. I had the opposite reaction. Oh, man. It's like, oh, my God, now I want to be Batman. Or now, feel like, and don't get me wrong, the original animated with Batman and the original X-Men are gold standards today, specifically because everything under the sun is getting so dumbed down for kids that are too smart for it these days.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just ridiculous that we can't go back. And we're obviously having to look towards Netflix to try to get some revitalization of some of our childhood classics. Shout out to Castlevania in that regard, even though I don't watch that. But yeah, that's a cool aspect. Hopefully they can do more stuff like that to make and I guess maybe that's where they're ahead of I guess DC Universe in that regard. Because a lot of people I guess are still trying to find a reason to get on DC Universe, specifically when the HBO stream thing is about to drop, and they're basically in the same neighborhood. So I'm guessing a lot of people like, okay, why don't y'all just put everything here and I just go over here with the HBO? So DC is in a weird space with that whole thing. But yeah, Disney is got some good stuff on this. So I hear when you can load it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with the DC Universe, because with so many other streaming services now coming under the Warner Media brand banner, DC Universe might be folded into something else. I like DC Universe, but when I originally heard that it was going to go away, I thought it was just going to be like they're tearing away DC. But what actually would end up happening is that they're going to fold DC Universe into another streaming service, essentially, if that's the route they go. They haven't made a decision yet. And like, all right, that's fine. All the content's still going to be there. All the shows and movies are still going to be there. It's just going to be a different service, and that's fine, whatever. Until I can become a billionaire and buy DC and make it its own standing property, we're just going to have to deal with the HBO overlords and whatnot. By the by, you mentioned Castlevania. Apparently, word went out on Friday of last week with a brief video announcement over Twitter. The animated series' 10-episode season ended on a cliffhanger that seemed to express confidence that the fourth season would be coming, and may even orient the story forward towards the first game. So this is hardly a surprise for fans that Castlevania has been greenlit for a fourth season. So yay!
Yeah, that's great. That's good. I mean, stuff like Voltron has come to an end and stuff like that. I think She-Ra is about to close out, but I'm looking forward to the second season of Ultraman, and I will continue to be on the lookout for, I guess, both versions of what they're doing with He-Man. Um, Hopefully they're equally as good or one's better than the other, so I won't have to depart on both of them. But yeah, they got some good stuff. It'll be really cool to see if they can, because I know some type of fundraising got years ago with the creators, but it'd be cool to see if they could revitalize SWAT Cats. I really dig that.
SWAT Cats. So, anything else that has caught your attention that you want to talk about?
Oh no, I think that pretty much covers everything we already. We talk about how the comics is dwindling. It's like when you go back and listen to what everything we went talked about with the freaking what was that the thing Marvel's got coming out with those young people?
Oh yeah, the Young Titans or Young Heroes or whatever it's called.
Yeah, like
New heroes.
yeah, like is there any like what else can you point to why things are dwindling down? Even amidst this pandemic, it's like that's not helping anybody. Like that hurts both brands, stuff like that.
It really
So
does because it makes the comics just look so hokey. It's this fucking 90s all over again. All right, Marcus. With that being said, we are done for the night. RealNerdCorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com for all your one-stop shop for all things Nerdcorp. WrestleCore, making an impact. Nope, not WrestleCore. Wrestling Underground, making an impact. ComicCorp, GameCorp. We're all there. Ohio guys, our production for our next podcast has not been confirmed yet, so we're probably not going to have a show tomorrow because Swisher has not gotten back to me. Boo. Marcus and I will be back on Sunday night, right after the second night of WrestleMania ends. It's going to be a late show, so probably around 10:30, 11 we'll be on. We're going to be on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground to review the 2 nights of WrestleMania live. Well, not live, because you know what I mean. We're going to be live to review the 2 nights. Probably as soon as WrestleMania is over. So twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground if you want to check that out. As always, all of our podcasts get downloaded and re-uploaded onto Podbean, realnerdcorp.podbean.com. You can download them to any mobile device through the website, or you can go and download it, the Podbean service, the app to your mobile device. You download those for free straight to your cell phone, tablet, what have you. Keep them. If you have a computer and you want to use it that route, you can just use the website. It's a little bit easier. We're also on youtube.com/Wrestling Underground. We'll port the show over to that. But if you want to catch up on our ComicCorp podcasts and you don't want to download anything or go to our website, you can find us on YouTube by searching Comic and GameCorp. Usually all of our podcasts get exported over to there when I remember to switch the profile correctly, because like last week, the Wrestling Underground didn't get ported to YouTube because it was on the ComicCorp streaming side of things. So I'm like, all right. I'm not going to fucking upload a 2-hour video to YouTube. That's insanity. But there's always another way to watch our shows. Or listen to our shows, I should say.
That's right, people. We have a streaming service too.
Yes. And it's free and it's called Twitch. Don't tell them we're here. We're like a squatter living in someone's pool house. I don't know why I found that so funny. You can find Marcus on his personals at Paradox Kid on Twitter. That's PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast he does called The True Prinny Show at True Prinny Show on Twitter. TruePennyshow. You can find me on mine at Chad Nerdcorp on Twitter, ChadNerdCorp, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. We have nothing else to tell you. We're done for the day. We will see you Sunday for wrestling, reviewing, commentary, and stuff. WrestleMania 36 is this weekend, and it doesn't feel like it. Hey, Corona. Marcus, with all that being said, I think it's time to say goodnight. Why don't you wrap things up for us?
Good night, me.